For most of Donald Trump's presidency, the Supreme Court has been a rubber stamp on all of his plans, but it seems that that is ending today as Donald Trump has tried and is failing to overturn birthright citizenship. Over 100 years of precedent, Donald Trump wants to send out the window for one reason alone. His approval rating is truly that bad, but clearly it is also pretty bad with the conservative justices on the Supreme Court who are tearing apart Donald Trump's argument today and sending him to not only run out of the building early, but to melt down on Truth Social, and it comes as a surprise to no one. But it all begins with what John Roberts had to say about the argument that Donald Trump is presenting before the Supreme Court, which I should say is going to prevent him from getting a win today, and then we're going to get into Donald Trump and his insane meltdown of a post. Chief Justice John Roberts challenges Trump DOJ over tiny and idiosyncratic examples in birthright citizenship case. Chief Justice John Roberts struck a skeptical tone, to say the least, on Wednesday during oral arguments at the Supreme Court on the Trump administration's challenge to a lower court ruling striking down the president's executive order or ending birthright citizenship. Solicitor General John Sawyer argued before the court that the 14th Amendment, which grants all people born in the U.S. citizenship, has been misinterpreted over the decades. Trump attended oral arguments, the first sitting president ever to do so, given the long-held separation of powers between the branches. The key clause in the Constitution in question reads, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside." Sauer has argued that the general understanding of the citizenship is inaccurate and that children of non-citizens are not subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. and therefore do not benefit from the Constitution. As to your second question, if you look at the text of the clause, it says, born in the United States, born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the states in which they reside. So there's a constitutional guarantee that applies to both federal or national and state citizenships, are said in response to questions from Justice Clarence Thomas. He added, and the key point we make there is that the word reside, if you look at, for example, section 1473 of Justice Story's commentaries, was understood to mean domicile. So when they say subject to jurisdiction and then go on to say you're a citizen of the United States in the state which they reside, the very test of the clause itself presupposes that the citizen is domicile in the United States. If they're a resident of any state at all, they reside there. Reside means domicile in the Constitution, and we think that strongly supports our interpretation. It's textual evidence of our domicile-based theory of jurisdiction. Roberts jumped in, well, starting with that theory, you obviously put a lot of weight on subject to the jurisdiction thereof, but the examples you give to support that strike me as very quirky. Children of ambassadors, children of enemies during a hostile invasion, children on warships, and then you expand it to the whole class of illegal aliens here in the country. I'm not sure how you can get to that big of a group from such a tiny and sort of idiosyncratic examples. So John Roberts seems a little bit more than skeptical, and he wasn't the only justice to push back on this argument being brought forth by the Trump administration, because it is nonsensical and it comes from a place of fear that Donald Trump has over who will be voting in the midterm elections. It's why no one in this administration will deny that ICE is going to be showing up at polling locations. It's why Donald Trump yesterday moved to stop in its entirety mail-in voting, except, of course, for people like him who vote by mail, even though he's got a plane that'll take him anywhere in the world. But Donald Trump's argument is failing. We can very clearly see that. It's why he ran out of the building and then immediately took to Truth Social. Humiliated Trump storms out of catastrophic Supreme Court hearing. Donald Trump abruptly exited the Supreme Court on Wednesday after some of his own conservative justices did not appear convinced by his bid to upend birthright citizenship in America. But after less than 90 minutes of watching several of his own handpicked justices tear his arguments apart, the president abruptly left. Then Donald Trump took to Truth Social and wrote, "We are the only country in the world stupid enough to allow birthright citizenship. Donald J. Trump." Let's make one thing very clear. There are dozens of countries that have birthright citizenship. Argentina has birthright citizenship. Canada has birthright citizenship. Chile has birthright citizenship. Countries in the Americas in which Donald Trump claims that he has full control over, right? This is part of Donald Trump's theory of Western imperialism that is the Don Roe doctrine, as he calls it, fucking idiotic, that he thinks he can own the entirety of the hemisphere. But that is something that we see run pretty consistent, this birthright citizenship in countries in the Americas. So that's just not true. But it isn't stupid, it's our Constitution. Why does Donald Trump constantly get to attack what is most fundamental to our country, and no one ever wants to say that he is unpatriotic or that he hates America and the very foundations of this country? Why is that something only that is applied to Democrats? Donald Trump, after the second No Kings, posted a video of him in a fighter jet literally shitting on my friend Harry Sisson and the entirety of New York City, the biggest city in the country. And no one said anything about how Donald Trump hates this country. Donald Trump and Republicans can constantly rail against San Francisco and LA and New York and the gems. Chicago, he called it a crime town or like a battlefield. He was dropping napalm on it in some dumbass AI image that he posted. And yet, no one will say that these people hate America. If you make fun of a little podunk town where Kristi Noem gets her bad Botox injections and her husband gets his fake tits, yeah, then you're hung out to dry and everyone says, oh my God, the liberals, they're so elitist. Do you know who's really elitist? The billionaire president of the United States who lived in a penthouse in New York City, the place he now hates and claims to be a real American patriot, even though he hates the very people he represents. And I know that because he takes away their health care and sends their kids to die in wars on behalf of Israel. That's pretty elitist to me. And yet he gets to claim by humping a flag that he is the patriot. He is not. Donald Trump is not. He wants to upend what is patriotic about our country, what is the basis for the American experiment. And someone should frame it in those terms, because that is the truth of what is happening. And I'm so tired of pretending that we, for some reason, are the elitist, out of touch, oh no, we care about people having health care. We maybe don't like that Oklahoma went from, 2 decades ago, something in the mid-20s in education, to dead goddamn last in every single category that matters for a state, because it's been under Republican control forever. And what do Republicans do to everything? They fuck it up. Economies, wars, healthcare systems, education. So those people maybe aren't patriotic. Those cutting checks to the Epstein class, who, by the way, view themselves above nation states. How about we talk about that? Instead of having a dumbass bullshit, unnecessary, unconstitutional argument about who is governed in the therein for, therein of, right? Who's in the jurisdiction? Instead of having debates about people who were born here, citizens born here, in that jurisdiction, how about we have a conversation maybe about the jurisdiction that the Epstein class thinks that the United States of America doesn't have over them? Because I can tell you, an Elon Musk, a Jeff Bezos, a Larry Ellison, a Mark Zuckerberg, they do not view themselves as citizens of this sovereign nation governed by its rules. There's no jurisdiction to them. They will violate whatever laws they want to enrich themselves because they have more money than the GDP of most nations. And so maybe that is a broken setup. Maybe that is the thing that we should focus on. Maybe that is unpatriotic. Maybe that is the jurisdiction we should get under control first. Maybe stop blaming the immigrants and start blaming the billionaires. I think these things should be quite easy to connect. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen it happen enough. But I can promise you that I am going to call out that bullshit as I see it, because most people are starting to see it. The broad majority of people are starting to see it. It is why Donald Trump's approval rating looks like this. And the reason he's melting down on Truth Social.
This is no April Fool's joke. This is a disaster. All these numbers are a disaster for President Trump. I mean, let's just talk about inflation, which is the name of the game. Okay, highest disapprovals on inflation about this time in a presidency. Whenever you have Joe Biden and Jimmy Carter on the board and you're matching them or slightly exceeding them when it comes to inflation, you know it's bad. Look at this. 72% in our latest CNN poll say they disapprove of the president on inflation. Joe Biden, in average of polls at this point in his presidency, 68%. And Jimmy Carter, whose presidency, just like Joe Biden's, was absolutely wrecked by inflation, was at 66% about at this point in his presidency back in 1978. Donald Trump, even worse than they are. So you see it here, and the one word is, or phrase I might say is, oh my goodness gracious, what a disaster.
And just what's so interesting here is inflation was way higher.
Yes.
So they just, right now, voters don't like what the president is doing on it, even if it isn't as high as it was at these other times. What about gas prices?
What about gas prices, which of course is part of this inflation picture, only making this number climb ever higher? How about disapprove on gas prices? Okay, disapproval ratings on gas prices. Biden's worst number, his worst number in any poll I could find, was 72% disapprove of Joe Biden on gas prices. Donald Trump right now in our CNN poll, 76%. 3 in 4 Americans disapprove of the way that Donald Trump is handling gas prices. And again, the gas prices were higher during Biden, but the increase has been so dramatic. Under the last month under Donald Trump, we're talking about an increase of about $1. It's the highest increase that we've seen since at least 1991 in terms of raw dollars. No wonder this number is so high. He is beating or doing even worse than Joe Biden was on gas prices, which of course was such a major issue.
By far the most unpopular president in American history. And it is for that reason that Donald Trump is trying to undermine the very basic values that hold our country together. To stop people from voting, to stop people from participating in the process, to stop people from viewing themselves as Americans. Donald Trump has worked very hard to define what our government does and for who throughout his term. Right? Donald Trump has made it very clear that our government serves a very small class of people. An Epstein class, and of course Israel, which is, by the way, that Venn diagram is a fucking circle. The Epstein class in Israel, don't even get me started on how many pedos are over there that escaped the United States in prosecution here. Again, having a conversation about jurisdiction, maybe all the pedos who leave America to go live in Israel where they're protected, maybe we should start talking about those people. But those are the type of people that Donald Trump protects. Goes after hardworking, patriotic immigrants who come to this country because they love it, they love its values, and they live its values. Maybe it's time to stop having that conversation. And maybe not even stop having it, but dismissing it before it even starts, because I'm not going to allow it to start. I'm not going to play on their side of the field. And we are going to be that blunt and straightforward and honest on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. You can also subscribe to my Substack down below or follow me on Instagram. Being a paid member on Substack, great way to support the show. My content will always be free. But if you want to chip in, I very much appreciate that. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.